Good Sunday evening, everybody. Welcome to all of you this March 14th, 2021, the first day of daylight savings time. Welcome, spring is right around the corner. The sun's beckoning us every day to be outside and celebrate not only a new season coming around the corner, but although still challenging, a new and optimistic outlook to the future in this long pandemic. We still have a ways to go. But we're here tonight for Witness to History. As you know, I'm Donna Whyte, and I have the esteemed pleasure of having our neighbor, Carmella Williams, who we all know gives her time and talents as one of our Shaker Heights City Council members. But before I get started, let me say a few thank yous like I always do. And I'd like to thank John Dutton first because he's behind the controls and makes sure that, I don't make any mistakes over here. He takes care of all the technology and the design. And thanks also to K Coaching, of course, Colin Compton, Kamla Lewis, and Megan Hayes, who I hope are all here tonight with us. Without their support and the city of Shaker Heights support, we might not have launched Witness to History. But for the record, this is our 8th Witness to History here with Carmella Williams. Hello, Carmella. Thank you so much for being with us this evening. Many of us might think that we know Carmella Williams because she is on our city council, but let me tell you something. We're going to get more information about our neighbor as we have with so many other of our neighbors. And so we're here to just recognize you and enjoy this time. As John said, if anybody has any questions, you can put questions or comments in the chat while we're talking, but we'll talk about a half hour or so, and then we'll open up for questions from our audience. So as I ask our guests each month, Carmella, as it seems to me that virtually everybody has migrated from someplace else to Shaker and to Moreland. What brought you to Moreland, Shaker Heights? What is your story?
Yeah, what brought me here? What attracted me here was just the community, the look and feel of Shaker, and being given that I was transitioning out of the military at the time, finding a community that had a solid school district was super important to me. At the time, my son was going into second grade. So we moved back in summer of 2000, or moved back to Cleveland in the summer of 2000. And I decided to settle in Shaker because at the time, my mom and my aunt, who was our family elder, my aunt Dee Dee, was living in Shaker in the Moreland neighborhood.
Okay, all right. Good for Moreland.
Yeah.
So
Good for me.
yes, let's go back a few years.
Okay.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about where you were born, where you grew up, and a little bit about your history.
Oh, sure. And I should have said thank you for having me too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I'm born and raised in Cleveland. You all may hear my what I like to call my Midwestern Southern drawl. Um, but that's a combination of growing up here and a family that migrated here from St. Louis, Missouri.
St. Louis.
Um, so I grew up in East Cleveland. Um, I graduated from Shaw High School, home of the mighty Cardinals. Shout out to John. I love that wardrobe.
Well, we'll have to make sure everybody sees that before we leave this evening.
So I grew up in East Cleveland on a street that actually no longer exists. The street is called Bryn Mawr, or was Bryn Mawr. And if you're familiar with East Cleveland, if you know where the main library is on Euclid, that was across from Bill Cat Piano and the East Cleveland Theater, my street was right there.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but since that street is gone, the library and the Windermere Rapid Station expanded. But that's where I grew up. I graduated. I also graduated from what was Kirk Middle School
Mhm.
back then. It goes by a different name now. So yeah, that's where I grew up.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. Well, tell us a little bit about your high school experience. When we had a conversation the other day, you were telling me about your wonderful teachers, some of the things
Mhm.
that you had learned, your work, how early you started working. Tell us a bit about, this story.
Oh, sure. So like I said, I went to Shaw and I love playing sports. So when I got to high school, I played softball and
Mhm.
basketball. Um, my coaches were Coach Clayton, who I bumped into at Shaker at Woodbury,
Oh,
and Coach Coach Fivey for basketball. And I enjoyed playing sports. If you know me, I like sports.
mhm.
But when I got to my 10th grade year, I got my first job
Mm.
with the East Cleveland Neighborhood Center through our school's vocational program. And so I made $5 an hour. Back then, you couldn't tell me nothing.
And
You
hey,
couldn't
that's
tell me
really
anything.
good.
And so, so I started working there, and my first supervisor was Angela Goodrum, who at the time was um, in college herself, working on her bachelor's degree.
Mhm.
And for you all that are here, if you're familiar with Shaker, had kids that went through the district in the last like 15 years, that name may sound familiar because the woman that was my first supervisor back on my job when I was in high school was my son's sixth grade teacher at Woodbury.
Right.
So that was funny. Um, yeah, but yeah, so I started working, and as a result of that job, I was able to get another job.
Mhm.
Um, at the main post office.
Mm.
So basically, my schedule would look like I'd go to school during the day, I'd leave school, go straight to the neighborhood center because they kept me on after the summer was over. And then I would leave the neighborhood center, drive down in my 83 Buick LeSabre that was like two parking spots wide. And I would drive down to the post office and work until about 11:30 at night. Then I'd come home and do whatever homework I didn't finish in study hall or in at breaks and that type of thing. And that was what I did. I probably spent a good chunk of my pay at Dawes Rapid Creation, which was, I don't know how many young people on here, but that was an old-fashioned record store.
Oh,
So
okay.
in East
Okay.
Cleveland.
Okay.
Yeah.
Goodness. Because you sound like a college student in high school. You get off at 11 o'clock. My goodness. Well, okay. So tell us, as you were thinking about what you were going to do after high school, what was on your mind and what were decisions you made as you were getting closer to graduation?
Well, I knew I knew I wanted to see the world outside of East Cleveland.
Mhm.
I thought about going to college. I didn't know exactly what all that would involve, how much it would cost, whether or not I could do it, was I prepared? Um, so I did some researching, and I had applied, and I don't know if we talked about this. I had applied to a couple of colleges. So I
Mhm.
applied to Wilberforce, I applied to Central State.
Mhm.
But I waited late.
Oh,
One of my, as I consider myself, uh, uh, I have black girl magic like everyone,
oh,
but
okay.
one of my weaknesses is that I procrastinate sometimes.
Okay.
So,
You knew
so
what the
I
outcome
wait.
was going to be.
What's that?
I said, you knew what the outcome was going to be. You're like,
Yeah,
"Oh, wait, maybe they'll say no."
right, right. So, but I thought about all these different things. I was open. So, I applied to those colleges. And while I was waiting, I also went to a job fair
Mhm.
at school. And so, one of the folks, like groups that I spoke with, was the recruiters.
Mhm.
And I already knew Army, Marines was not my thing. You know, I am cool, but I am not down with sleeping in tents and digging latrines and all that stuff.
Okay.
So I
Okay.
drew those two out. So it would be
Mhm.
Air Force or Navy if I went. And you know what's interesting? You talked about my teachers and all these things that I learned at Shaw. One of the things I really appreciated about my Shaw High School education was all of this, the opportunity to learn about me.
Oh, wonderful.
So I had two teachers, Mrs. Shaheed and
Mhm.
Mr. Newsom.
Mm.
They taught basically everything about Black people.
Oh,
So I took African American histories, Black biographies, Black studies, all of these different things.
boy, the high school.
And so the funny thing is that, after waiting and waiting, not hearing back from the colleges I applied to,
Oh.
I stayed in touch with the Navy recruiters
Mhm.
and we just clicked. And
Mm.
so I said, okay, maybe I'll join the Navy. But
Mhm.
what's funny, and the reason I brought up all that the classes that I had taken, that at one point I was a student that wouldn't stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And how funny that student ends up joining the military.
Mhm.
And one of the things that helped me with that was my my family, which is important to me. And prior to me, had all of these uncles and
Mhm.
a grandfather that had served, and all of them served in the army
Okay.
from World War II through Vietnam.
Mhm.
And so I had an opportunity to talk with them and understand the complex relationship or complicated relationship African Americans have. And
Mhm.
I developed this appreciation through them
Mhm.
of the not only sacrifice but of the patriotism
Mhm.
that they had in spite of all that they faced.
Wow.
So I decided, okay, I'll go to the military. So in my senior year of high school, I can tell you the date, January 25th, 1992, I
All right.
signed my contract
Mhm.
with the military to join the Navy. And so what I did was, so you heard me, January 25th, 1992, I signed my contract. It wasn't until May of 1992 that I told my family
Yeah.
what I had went off and done.
Uh-huh.
And
What was
and
their reaction?
well, well,
Uh-huh.
shock, but not surprised.
Mhm.
So if you took note of my baby picture that you all may have seen early on, my aunt Dee Dee always jokes that I came into the world with a little attitude. And so she said she wasn't surprised.
Mm.
So, I told them, and I had like a little strategy in mind because I know my family's really tight. You heard me say they moved together from St.
Yeah.
Louis here. My mom, my grandma, her sisters, and stuff.
Mhm.
So I knew that I was breaking ranks.
Ah.
And my strategy was if I told them later,
Mhm.
they wouldn't have time to talk me out of it.
Right. Right. Just
Excuse
like
me.
you applied to school late and you knew you weren't gonna get in.
Right. Well, you know
Strategy.
what, Donna? I believe everything happens for a reason.
Of course.
So when I knew it was late, I didn't know what would happen. But if I was meant to be there, I would have gotten that call. And you know what's funny, Donna?
What is it?
I was in boot camp and my mom forwarded me a letter that I had gotten. She said, I don't know if this is important, but I'm sending you this letter from Central State. I had gotten accepted to
Mm.
Central State,
Oh,
but
okay.
I was in boot camp. So,
Okay. Okay.
yep,
Well, you had already made your decision and moved
yep,
on.
I was where I was supposed to
Yeah,
be.
that's where you wanted to be. So tell us, John, if you could bring the picture back, tell us about the picture that he just projected there.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, here we are.
So I talked about boot camp. This is boot camp, company K048. It was an all women's company. Boot camp at that time. Um, in the Navy, they had two locations, Great Lakes, Illinois, or Orlando, Florida.
Okay.
So I was sent off to sunny Orlando, Florida, and going to boot camp was the very first time this young girl from East Cleveland had ever been on a plane.
Okay.
Yeah, and so off I went. And if you all are familiar with Florida, they had what I would call flying cockroaches. They they called them palmetto bugs, which sounds really, really nice.
They're
But
flying roaches, huh?
they scared the daylights out of me. But yep, and that's me
Okay.
in the back row. And
Okay.
funny story is that when we were in boot camp, one of the first things that they told us that we could not do our hair. And for people on here that know, not being able to do my hair meant I couldn't put a relaxer in it, couldn't press it. So those were rough times.
Okay. Okay. But you got through it. You got
Got
through it.
through it.
So from Orlando,
Mhm.
where did you go from there?
So from Orlando, my first assignment was Naples, Italy.
Mhm. And tell me
So,
what your impression was when you heard Naples.
well, when they were handing out our orders, literally, they said, "Hey, Williams, you're going to Naples." And I said, "Naples, like Florida?" And and they said, no, you're going to Naples, Italy."
Okay.
And I have to be honest. At that point, my experience was limited.
Hmm.
And so my point of view was forged by one of my favorite movie trilogies of all time, The Godfather
Oh boy.
and Little Italy. And at
Uh-huh.
the time when I was coming up, we knew Little Italy was a dangerous area for us. I had family members that came home with bullet holes in their cars
Mhm.
just driving through Little Italy in the
Yeah.
60s and 70s.
Mhm.
So, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going out of the country. I wasn't sure if maybe I should have just waited and went to college or what. But, like anything that we do, I had to suck it up. And
Yeah.
so I land in the airport in Rome,
Mhm.
and the first Italian that I laid eyes on is this Carabinieri guard, which is like the military police.
Mm.
And this guy had to be like 6'5", and he's holding a machine gun, and he's got a Doberman pincher at his side.
Okay. All right.
And and he's in the airport. As soon as I come out of the tunnel from the plane, that's the first person I see.
Mhm.
And I say, oh my gosh, I don't know if I made the right decision. So I walk through the airport and collect my things, go out to the bus, and I take this 2-hour bus ride from
Mhm.
Rome to Naples.
Mm.
And once we got outside of the city of Rome and we're
Mhm.
rolling along the road, I'm looking out at all these postcard images, like these beautiful rolling hills and these little houses that look like cottages sitting off in the distance. It looked like a postcard, and so
Mhm.
this is just some of the beauty in Italy. And
Yeah.
I'll have to tell you about that little boat over there. But
Okay.
I'm riding along, and as we get closer to Naples, it looks like a city. Like, I mean, a city of just everyday people. I almost felt like I was, um, to some degree, home,
Okay.
um,
Okay.
just because there were scenes that looked familiar to me,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
smells. There was good food. There were
Mhm.
clotheslines with people hanging out their laundry to dry. It
Okay.
just looked like a community that I was familiar with.
Oh, wonderful. Well, you needed to
Mhm.
feel at home, but you were a long way from home.
Long way from home.
That's
It
what you
evoked,
signed up
look,
for. You said that you wanted to see more than East Cleveland.
oh yeah, oh yeah,
Oh,
oh yeah.
so what was your career path when you were in the military? What were some of the things that you learned?
Oh, okay. So obviously I learned a lot of Navy things, like how to tie that little boat to the dock.
Oh, okay.
Uh,
Is
and
that
that
the
was a
story about the boat?
well, that's so my very first duty station where I was assigned in Italy was a command called Commander Submarine Group 8.
Hmm.
And so our commander um, was our admiral was basically in charge of that region in that area. And so one of the perks that he had was use of this beautiful ship here that had a really nice sound system. And don't tell anyone, but Tupac sounded really good on here, along with Miles Davis and some other
Okay.
stuff. Yeah, but that's one of the things because I came out of boot camp and school as an undesignated seaman. So, there's different designations, and depending on what career path, like job that
Mhm.
I decided or specialty that I wanted, I would be in one of those paths. So I
Okay.
was an undesignated seaman, which meant that I didn't have a specialty. So I was assigned to the supply department.
Hmm.
And one of the responsibilities for the supply department was maintaining the admiral's boat.
Oh, oh,
So
okay.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So we would be painting that. We would, all of that stuff. And so
Hmm.
um, in addition to ordering the supplies that not only our command needed, but the submarines that would pull into port in Naples, whatever they needed.
Okay. So now
Mhm.
is this Italy or Sicily? Because I know you were in both places.
Right. So this was in Italy.
Oh, this was in
So
Italy.
yeah.
Oh.
So while I was in Italy, I decided I wanted to have a specialty.
Hmm.
So what I eventually did was I um, decided I wanted to become what the Navy calls a yeoman. And in civilian terms, that would be an administrative assistant.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I did while I was there.
Okay. And I want to just chime in here. Mel and family are saying thank you for your service, and on behalf of everybody, thank you so much. Thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
service. So your career path. So you were a yeoman, and then where did you go from there?
So I stayed in Italy for 2 years, and then I moved off to um, Brunswick, Maine. So
Mhm.
I went from submarines to an air station.
Oh.
So I was assigned to VP of Patrol Squadron 11 in Brunswick, Maine. And the picture that you're looking at on the bottom right is that duty station.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
while I was there, I was promoted to, well, I had a couple of promotions. I went from yeoman third class to yeoman second class, or petty officer second class. So that was promotion day there. So that picture on the bottom right, along with the picture on the left, was
Mhm.
promotion day.
Nice.
As you can see, the military budget was not spent on office decorations and remodeling.
Okay.
But so that's where I went. And while I was in Brunswick, Maine, I decided I wanted to change careers again.
Okay.
So I went from being a yeoman to a legalman. And
Mhm.
that was after a brief flirtation with um, the idea of becoming a paramedic,
Mhm.
but one volunteer stint at the in the emergency room made it very clear that was not my path. I
Okay.
didn't have the stomach for it, so I went
It's
into the legal field.
it's wonderful that you were able to explore.
Yeah,
I really just, what it is that you were able to learn and not necessarily go through years of training and then on the other end decide that wasn't what you wanted to do.
right, right.
So
Yeah.
what is this? Where?
So I went off to so the picture on the left is promotion day in Connecticut.
Mhm.
Or I'm sorry, re-enlistment day in
Oh,
Connecticut. So
okay.
the picture on the right is of my classmates in legal justice school
Okay.
in Newport, Rhode Island, another beautiful place. Um, and
So the enlistment meant that how many years did you serve total?
In total, I served 8 years.
Mhm.
And at the time when I enlisted, um, 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 enlistees were allowed to enlist for 2 years in
Mhm.
an apprentice program. And so, but when you sign a military contract, at least at that time, what you're basically choosing is to commit to 8 years of service,
Mhm. Okay.
regardless of what that may look like. So I could have served 2 years on active duty
Mhm.
and then decided, you know what, this isn't for me. I'm going off to college. I still would have been obligated for 6 years,
Mhm.
6 additional years, which I could have chosen to serve in an inactive status,
Okay.
which meant that if there was some sort of conflict or issue
Mhm.
that came up for the nation, I could have been called back to active duty within that 6 year period.
Oh, okay. I
Yep.
see.
So, yeah, but what I ended up doing, I liked it so much that I spent all 8 years on active
Oh,
duty.
wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And so we come to the end of you. Are there any other military pictures we have here? Yes.
Um, oh, so that again is Naval Justice School of my classmates. And on the right, obviously, and on the left, that was my last duty station, our team at the Trial Service Office in Groton, Connecticut.
Okay.
So, career path wise, I went from submarines to aviators back to submarines again.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, that was my crew. And, just an interesting footnote, the when we graduated from the justice school, you all may, if you're familiar with the Supreme Court, um, Anton Scalia
Mhm.
um, came
Yes.
and spoke to our class.
Well, that was memorable, I'm sure.
Hmm.
I mean, someone from the Supreme Court being your speaker, that's really an honor.
Right. It was, yeah, it was cool. But yeah, so I went to some, what I like to say or tell people about my military career is that it taught me a little bit about myself. I went to the military 18 years old, and one of the things I didn't mention was that um, I served on active duty the whole time,
Hmm.
and I learned something about myself. But I went to the Navy 2 weeks after I graduated from Shaw High School. We graduated on June 8th at the Front Row Theater, for those of you that remember that spot.
Yes.
And, I went from there off to boot camp.
Mm.
Um, and I had all of these experiences. I was glad to, when you and I spoke, Donna, because this gave me an excuse to go through my old fashioned pictures, all
Yeah.
of these shoe boxes and shoe
Uh-huh.
boxes I had of
Uh-huh.
pictures. And two pictures I couldn't find that I wanted to show you all was a picture of the Leaning Tower of Pisa
Mhm.
and pictures of the Vatican. And
Mm.
I've got a bunch of other pictures, but it was really exciting for me to be able to see these
Mm.
things, these buildings, these structures, these places I've read about or saw pictures of in my history books. And I'll go from East Cleveland to Italy to
Mm.
see it myself.
When you find
So
those pictures, you call me. I'm gonna come over to your house and look. You're right around the corner.
right, and in these different places like Maine and Connecticut, all these
Mhm. Oh,
places beautiful.
yeah.
New England is a place I like just because I've always liked fall. I'm a summer baby. I was born in July.
Mm.
But New England in the fall and the foliage and all that stuff is beautiful.
Yes, I had the pleasure one time of flying into Vermont in the
Mm.
fall.
Mhm.
Oh, It was memorable. It was memorable. Well, let's move into, okay, paralegal background now. So you're coming out of the military and
Mhm.
you start working. So,
Right.
so tell us about your career path. Where do you work, or where have you been these years? And then we're going to move into your community service.
Okay. So when I came out of the military, I knew it would be an adjustment for me because I had spent 8 years in the military. So any of you that are military people or have been around military people, yeah, one of the things we tend to do is speak in abbreviations and acronyms and all that type of thing. And I know it drives folks crazy. And so I had to go through this transition period. So I started out working through a temp agency, and that allowed me to work at different law firms.
Okay.
And so I had some good experiences there, in that it helped me kind of recalibrate my language and my vocabulary to civilian speak.
Mhm.
But it also gave me an opportunity to check out small and large firms.
Mhm.
And so eventually I landed with, I was assigned to work at Baker and Hostetler,
Right.
which I am still with today.
Yes.
So my very first day working for them as a temp was 9/11, like the
Mm.
9/11.
Wow.
And
Mhm.
so I remember, that's why I never forget that day. I went to work and I was there for all of maybe 2 hours in
Mhm.
orientation.
Mhm.
And the announcement went out that we had to leave.
Mhm.
But fast forward the month of October, they decided to hire me on as a permanent employee. So I
Mhm.
worked in the records department, the old fashioned physical records department.
Mhm. And
And
what's your position now?
I'm what is called a records management analyst.
Mhm.
So, long story short, what I do, I still work with records,
Mhm.
but the world is changing and people are moving away from paper records.
Right.
And there's all sorts of governance, um, legal governance that protects all sorts of data. So what I do now is that our team is the risk and compliance team. So we help establish policy for managing the physical and electronic records, which
Mhm.
includes email.
Wow.
We collect data, manage that data, secure that data, and when need be, deliver that data outside of the firm.
I'm gonna, when all is said and done, Carmela, I'm gonna have you organize my records. We all need that, somebody professional who knows how to look at this and weed out the stuff we don't need and hold on to the stuff that we think we need. I
Yeah,
mean,
so that's what I
I'd
do.
love to know just how your mind works. know. Well, okay, so there you are, and let's bring you into the neighborhood.
Okay.
I think, and I said, well, I was thinking of when it was that I first met you. I can't really remember. I feel like I've known you forever, but I'm sure it was through Moreland on the Move Community Association. And so, how did you start getting involved here? You're, a career person, and of course, we balance career and community.
Mhm.
How did you first get involved with the Moreland community? And then from that point, here we are. You're on City Council.
Right.
How did all this get started?
You know what's funny? Two words is how I got involved in the community. Daryl Bell.
Okay. Okay.
If if you know Daryl, well, one, community is important to me, and in all of my experience that I had in the military and things, that community just is important. So just in general, just by my nature, I like connecting with people, knowing my neighbors. If you know me, you know I love talking with people and engaging people.
Yes.
So that's just natural. But when I decided to buy my first and only home, which I'm sitting in now, I connected with Daryl, who grew up in the neighborhood on Pennington.
Mhm.
And he's a contractor. So because I know what I don't know, and I knew I needed professional help, Daryl was the person that kind of supervised the
Mm,
contractor that I did hire to make sure I got quality work.
mm,
But because he grew up in the neighborhood, we started talking about Moreland
mhm,
and just the community in general. And I still know Daryl today, call him a
mhm,
friend today. And we would talk, and he would drop off a flyer for me. And he eventually became president of Moreland on the Move Community
mhm.
Association. And so he kept inviting me to the meetings. And so finally I said, okay, I'll start going. So I started going. And then eventually he asked me if I could help out with um, some of the responsibilities like correspondence secretary or something. I said, oh yeah, sure. And that was basically how I got started.
Started with a pamphlet. I
Right,
think we all have stories about how did you get involved? Well, let me think about that. There was
right, right.
a person, one of our neighbors, and here we are. And and I had mentioned that, when I think of Carmella, oh, here we are, some of the events in the neighborhood. Just tell us what this was.
Oh, sure. And for many of you know this. Moreland is the MOMCA, the Community Association. The things that it's done has always been about the work of the community, people stepping up and being involved. So Vicky and I and some
Vicky
other
Elder,
folks,
Vicky Elder.
Vicky, I'm sorry, Vicky Elder. Yeah, and side note, so Vicky and I worked together at Baker Hosteller, but we did not know that we lived in the same neighborhood.
Really funny.
Yeah, we did not know. It wasn't until, and same thing, Daryl and Mrs. Taylor, for those of you that remember Mrs. Taylor,
Really,
spoke to
yeah.
Vicky. She reached out, wanted to be engaged, um, and Vicky says she signed up just to be treasurer. And the next thing she knows, she's
That is
all up to her elbows in community. But it wasn't until I was at a mom meeting and Vicky walked in the door and it's like, hey, don't you work at Baker Hostetler?
that's funny. That's
Yeah,
very
so
good.
just small world in our big little town. But
Yeah.
this is one of the many events that Mom could plan. This was the annuals, which was a plant giveaway. The plants were purchased using a grant from the Neighborhood Leadership Development Program
Mhm,
that Vicky, Colin Compton, who I see on the
mhm.
phone, hi Colin, that we all attended. And if you're ever able to, I would suggest, any of you, if you can take that time, sign up for that program and we can talk about it. But this was a event that we organized. So it was a free plant giveaway. People were able to go out, grab a flat of flowers, plant them in their yard. We had some teens from the neighborhood, many of them you see in this picture here, that volunteered their time to help out with that. They helped to load up the bag of mulch and the plants that we were giving away into vehicles. And for those that needed additional assistance, teams would go to the homes of these folks. There's a lot of people on this, participating here today, John and some other folks that helped to make that happen.
Yes. So there's MOMCA, and there's also a couple of other things that I know you've done. How about talking about the library board?
Right. Oh, right.
Oh,
So the timing of that was perfect because um, I had decided at one point that I needed to go ahead and finish off the bachelor's degree that I had started in the military.
okay.
So I had just actually finished up my bachelor's degree in criminal justice when a certain person who happens to be the host of tonight's conversation of Witness to History called me and said, "Hey, have you thought about um, serving on the library board?" And I hadn't, but I said, "Okay, I'm finishing school. It's the library.
Mhm.
How eventful can it be?" And I said, sure. And I said, wait a minute, 7 years. That's like I've got commitment issues. That's a long time. And, but I said, okay, I'll do it because if you know Donna, it's so hard to say no.
Oh, let's think about some other people I need to call up and ask.
So I signed up, and so from 2012 to 2019, I served on the library board, and I enjoyed the experience, but I did not see that there was a levy on
Mhm.
the
Right,
horizon.
right.
So yeah, so it was interesting.
Very good.
It had its own challenges, but I'm still convinced to this day that it was worth that investment.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
And just the footnote here, you know, keep in mind we didn't know what 2020 held for
Mhm.
us.
Yes.
And I think about the fact that students, particularly in our area, knew that they had access to Wi-Fi
Sure.
through
Oh,
their library, even if they didn't have it at home.
absolutely, absolutely. And so you roll off the library board, and then your life moves on to the role that you have now, and you'll
Right.
bring us to, your membership on the city council at this point. And tell us a bit about this picture and what this
Okay.
is.
Oh, so let me
The
tell you
picture,
about a
the
couple
picture
of
up
these.
on the
So
left is your library board picture, right?
right,
Yeah.
that is that picture. And then you see family and friends are always near. So those two young ladies you see there are my nieces. The one on the left is Jada, and the one on the right is Michaela.
Okay.
Right, and Auntie is in the background behind them, and the woman on the far left with the white glasses on in that same picture is actually my best friend. We have known each other since we were like 12 years old,
That's
and she is a Heights Tiger for those of you
mm,
out there. So yeah, my circle, I try and expand my circle to not just include Cardinals.
okay. Okay.
And so just jokingly. And so on the right is a picture of me, my very first council meeting. That was the night of swearing in.
You're just smiling. All righty. Your first meeting. Here
That's
we
my
are,
very first meeting.
swearing in, swearing in. I was there. Tell us.
Yes, yeah. So that's Judge KJ Montgomery swearing us in, and you see Councilwoman Nancy Moore and Councilman Earl Williams and Sean Malone there. We were all on the ballot that November of
Right.
2019, and were
19.
sworn in January.
Wow.
And it's so funny, Donna, because I never thought I'd be on the library board, and look at what happened. And I won't say exactly because there may be children watching, but there were, I never thought that I'd run for an elected office. I never, necessarily wanted to, but um, but the time that I served on the library board um, made me do something and not think about it,
Mm.
or to do it afraid, maybe would be a good way to say it. So
You
yeah, so
know where you might go. Don't think too hard about it, Carmella.
right,
Think too hard about it. The next step will come along, and you'll be in the right place at the right time. That's for sure. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service in the military and your service to Shaker Heights and to Moreland for sure.
but
Um,
thank you for your support, Donna.
oh,
You and a
absolutely.
lot of people
You're
out there.
much later. Um, so I think we have another picture. Do we, John? I don't know. I think there's one more picture. Maybe not. Oh, yes, you have to, and this is, bring us to the end of our conversation, but tell us what this is right here and tell us a little bit about what you do in your spare time.
Right, I build furniture. No,
Oh,
so yeah, so and honestly, this is something I built. So I was talking with my best friend you saw in that picture, and I said, girl, I really want a couch for my backyard, and I want something kind of large, but I'm not paying $2,000 for a couch. And so she said, hey, I saw something on Pinterest you might be interested in. I'll send you a picture. So the picture on the left is the inspiration. The
mhm.
picture on the right is my my recreation.
That's wonderful.
Yep,
Oh,
I can't
Carmella, I
take
see, so
credit
I know
for,
it's behind that fence. When I
yes,
drive down Scottsdale and I see the fence at Carmella's house, now I know what's behind the fence.
right.
That's beautiful. All
Yep,
right.
so that's what I do. And last year during COVID, I was left, well, I've been working from home basically since March of last year. And I like working with my hands. I like working with my hands, but I don't think I want it to be a job because I don't think it'd be as fun anymore. But I have painted every room in my house except 2 rooms in the basement that I need to do.
Oh, wow. Well, we're going to bring you back to your family again. So you
Okay.
mentioned that your son was in second grade when he came here,
Yes.
moved here to Shaker. Uh,
Yeah.
where's your son? Where's your son?
Oh, so yeah. So well, my son right now, he's a Shaker grad, and he is continuing our tradition of military service. He is a staff sergeant in the Air Force now, and
Okay.
he actually celebrated his 8th year anniversary last October.
Oh my
Yeah,
goodness. Now
yeah.
where is he stationed now?
He is right now he's in the Middle East.
Mm.
Yep, he's on a deployment. That's young Donovan.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, he is in the Middle East now.
Wonderful. Carrying
Yep,
on.
and he's been some cool places. So my military service took me to Europe and the New England area. So for him, he's gone to Italy. He's in northern Italy. I was in southern Italy.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also been stationed in South Korea a
Mm.
few times, in Italy a couple of times.
Isn't that something wonderful? What a story, Carmella. We had one question a little bit. Now, who's this a picture of here?
Oh, sure. So this is my son and my brother, my little brother Joseph. So the picture of the two young men over here, that's my brother Joseph. I'm 9 years older than him. And that's little Donovan. He's not 1 year yet in that picture.
Okay, okay. That's
And
one.
he is sporting, for those of you that may remember, some Charlotte Hornets gear that his uncle Henry, who was a proud North Carolina sports fan, brought him. And
Okay.
the picture on the right is actually of Donovan in second grade. Or I'm sorry, no, that's Donovan in first grade.
Okay. Okay. Right before he came to Shaker.
Mm-hmm.
I had one question a little bit earlier asked if you were in the Navy Reserves.
No, I was on active duty.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And also, oh, this comment. Wow, talking about your couch. That couch is beautiful. You've had so many adventures, very inspiring from Dion.
Thank you, dear.
Yes. Any other questions from our audience? Any other questions or you want to put in the chat? Or anybody want to chime in? You had an exciting life, Carmela. You would always just say, yeah, well, I was in the military. And that that was kind of what you say. I was like, yeah, you were really in the military. And I think it's really also just important to think about how it was that at the high school level, you were saying, well, maybe I don't want to go the college route, or, the
Mm-hmm.
option was there, the recruiters were there. And you had mentioned that there were a number of students in your high school class that went into the military.
Mm-hmm. There
Mhm.
were. And I can't remember exactly for sure, but it feels like there were at least 10 of us
Mhm.
that went off to different branches. And when I was at I didn't mention when I was at Shaw, I was in Army ROTC.
Oh, okay.
And so, I had
And introduce.
Sergeant Major Gibson and Sergeant Ramey were
Oh,
our instructors.
okay.
And both good men, both had served in Vietnam.
Mhm.
And they used to talk with us all the time. And but I really enjoyed that experience. You're right. I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Mhm.
I was telling someone that, when we're kids in elementary school, we have all these dreams about what we want to do, all these careers. I probably had 12 careers by the time I got to fifth grade.
Mhm.
And that's one thing. But when you get to high school, you're on the verge of actually going out
Mhm.
into the world
Right.
where you need to not only start trying to figure out what you want to do. Like my niece and nephew, Jaden, you didn't see him pictured in these pictures, but my nephew Jaden, he is certain he wants to become a doctor.
Mhm.
Certain. My
Right.
niece Jada, certain what she wants to do. Michaela, not so sure
Mhm.
and is a work in progress. All of that's okay.
Yes.
And I'm thankful that my family gave me that space to
Mhm.
figure out what I wanted to do.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Here's a question from Seal. Did you visit Toronto? Toronto,
No,
Italy? Toronto. That's what it is.
no, I didn't. So I was able to I was stationed in Naples and I visited Rome, Florence, Pisa, and Donna mentioned I was also on a deployment to Sicily for
Mhm.
6 months. So I had been assigned to the air station in Brunswick, Maine, but we went on a deployment to Sicily, which is another beautiful place too. But no, Toronto. But I have my passport now, and my son is in Italy, but I wanted to go back. So thank you, Seal. I may add Toronto to my list. We'll talk.
Mhm. And it all started off saying, I want to see more than East Cleveland.
Yep.
How am I going to accomplish this? I'll be in the
Yeah.
military. Yes. Any other questions? This is wonderful. Any other questions? Oh, from
And
Colin. Did anything about running for office surprise you? Either, parentheses, either the process of running or the experience of running, since you didn't have to run for the library board and your reaction for 7 years was just like mine. I'm like, 7 years. You know? And it's not an elected office. You're just
right, right,
me up for 7 years. But
right.
with city council, of course, you had a campaign. And I
Hmm.
have one of those T-shirts. Everybody says Carmella Williams on it. Yes,
Yeah,
talk about your experience in your campaign.
yeah. So running for office, I had never looked into what all is involved in
Mhm.
running for office. So what there were some things that surprised me, but not in the process, like, pulling a petition, filing a petition, setting up um, a campaign committee, that type of thing. But the work that goes into it um, was one thing. But what surprised me, and I guess in a way because of the work I've done in the community that shouldn't have surprised me, is what you can do. One, what you can do with a small group of people, like that core team.
Mhm.
And then I shouldn't have been surprised at, but I was just by that support
Mhm.
that I had, that I talked about. And I say that only because I imagine that there are so many people that are more than capable of serving in office
Mhm.
and would really, really be good at it.
Mhm.
But they think they can't, either because they can't or they've got commitments, or they think because, if you follow politics, that you need some big war chest and some big, campaign team that does this. And on certain levels, yes. But, when people talk about politics being local, that really is true.
Mhm.
The politics and the politicians that are right in your neighborhood
Mhm.
or in your community are really important to you, from your school board to the mayor's office to your council,
Mhm.
um, are important. So
Yeah.
I was surprised at um, what we could what we could do with a small team.
Mhm.
Um, and and Colin, all of you will appreciate this. I was surprised that Shaker had, like, on average 100 block parties every year.
Mm.
And so going out and talking with these different people,
Mhm.
um, was something,
Yes.
something.
Well, you can wrap your arms around Shaker.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that might sound like a lot, but I mean, you can get across the city and
Mm-hmm.
get to know people on, every side of our little town of our
Right. Right.
and
And you have to, because, I'm sure a lot of you know this. Shaker, unlike other communities like Cleveland, Shaker council members are at large.
yes. Hmm.
So, what that means is we don't have wards in Shaker.
Right.
In Cleveland, you have a council member that represents an area or a section of the city.
Yes.
For Shaker, all 7 council members represent all of
Right.
Shaker.
Right. Absolutely. So everybody who's on, the call today, you may be look at your neighbors from your right to left. You may be sitting,
Mm-hmm.
next door to somebody who will be in an elected office. It's possible. It's possible.
Mm-hmm.
You might get a call from a little birdie that says, "Have you thought about this?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So Mel has a question. How long did it take you to make your furniture? What are you making next? All right. All right.
So that couch took about 2 years.
Hmm.
Yeah, and it took 2 years because I was trying to do it on the cheap.
Oh,
I wanted to go out and find pallets that I could have for free.
mm,
So I had gotten some from our service center.
okay.
Um,
Oh,
uh,
wow.
one of my coworkers, she and her husband had ordered something, I think a jacuzzi or something,
Mhm.
and it was delivered on a couple of those really long pallets. So um, if you look at where we're looking at now, the facing, where we see the backing on that side,
Mhm.
though the bottom of that, the seat is 3 12-foot long pallets.
Mm.
And
Okay.
then the section of the L that's coming toward us without the back, those are the standard like 48 by 48 pallets
Mhm.
or 40 by 48 pallets.
Mhm.
So, I was trying to do it on the cheap. Well, I had gotten to a point that I really wanted to get it done. So I found a place on the west side. I think it's called Camino Pallet and Box or something, where it was like pallet heaven.
Oh,
And so for about $40 and the cost of a U-Haul rental pickup, I was able to go and buy the remaining pallets that I needed. So I was able to go to town once I did that. But it took about 2 years. And
wow. And
what I'm building next, I don't know. I have to decide
oh,
what I
okay.
want in my yard. So
Check back on you. And Rhonda says it's comfy too. I like that. I like that note. Any other questions from our audience? This is fun. This is fun.
This is Earlene Hooper. I'm trying to find out what the base, what kind of padding did you use for the base? The top.
for the cushions.
Yes.
Cushion.
Okay. And hi, Hoopers. It's good to see you all.
Thank you. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Fantastic job.
Oh, thank you. So what I used, I went online and found what they called RV cushions. So those would be the same type of cushions you would use on a bed in an RV.
Mm.
And that's what I used. And then I ordered some waterproof fabric.
Mm.
And I can't take credit for creating those covers. I had to get professional help for that.
Okay.
Okay, very nice,
Okay,
very nice.
good.
Yeah,
I
don't
think
Thank you.
is that the when we were over your house to put up flyers, or that had just arrived in pieces?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
we're gonna have to have our own little DIY. Who wants to go to this room and learn how to build a pallet, so they can have it in their backyard next year. All right. Any other questions, comments?
Carmella. Oh, Carmella?
Go right ahead.
Yeah. Did you, when you were in Naples, did you get over to the Isle of Capri?
Yes, I did. We actually took that little boat over to
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Oh, that little boat. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah. 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 I loved it there. Beautiful. Beautiful.
it is. It
Yeah.
is.
And here's a comment from Kai. Thank you for sharing your story, Carmella. Thank you, Donna, John, and K Coaching for facilitating. I'm grateful to have learned from everyone. Take care, all.
Hey, Kai, I'm glad you're here.
That's very nice. That's very nice. Any other comments, questions?
Yes, I don't know how to do the chat thing, so I guess I gotta speak from the speaker. But Carmella, I really rushed home to hear your story, and I'm glad that George Eaton had called me and told me, and then I'm glad that I called Sam, and Sam said, "Hey, we're looking at Carmella," and so I rushed home, as it might have shown that I was on the streets and all, but I really enjoy hearing your story. I knew you were in that other branch of the service that I refer to as, those
Watch
that
it, Al.
those that chauffeured us around. But it's really great, and you being on council is a great addition to our city council, and I can't wait until you all start meeting again so I can come and see what's happening. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Well,
Good to see you,
Thank you
Al.
for your service, Marine.
here's another comment from my sister, Diane McIntyre. Wonderful journey. I could picture everything. Thank you. And from Iris, hi, Carmella, great job. Loved your story.
Thank you all.
See, we always think we know our neighbors, and then we say, wow, you have all this story to tell, and many more stories to tell, as time goes on. You're just getting started, Carmella.
Hi, everybody. Want to apologize for being an hour late. We didn't change all of our clocks.
Uh-oh. Well, we're still here, Harry. You have a question?
I flew that. Nice to see everybody.
Good seeing you too. Good seeing you. Welcome aboard. That was what I was thinking. This would be the title of this. All aboard. All aboard. I don't want to give away too much. Yes. Well, this was absolutely wonderful, Carmella. Absolutely wonderful. What do we have here? Oh, yes. And our ad at the end of our program, anybody interested in being a guest on Witness to History, please volunteer. And here's my number, my phone number, and my email address. And I actually look at that email. So if you send me a note, I'll respond. Second Sunday of each month at 6 o'clock. And like I said, this is our 8th Witness to History. So, we're moving forward. You can be along the banner. You see the faces of our neighbors there in Moreland along the top. And eventually we'll have to go all the way around the side and all. So, this is just a wonderful way. And just everybody's story is worth telling.
Donna,
Yes.
sorry.
Vicki?
Since we came in so late, when do you think this will be up on YouTube?
That's a John question.
Within 2 to 3 weeks. Let me say that.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't want to keep thinking it was my fault that I couldn't find it.
Oh, and also that the library posted under their, in their history catalog as well. So it'll be there.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well,
John, have a very nice Passover.
yes. Thank you, Carmella. Thank you so much for your willingness to be with us on Witness to History this evening and telling us this wonderful story. Wonderful story. We're all going to come and visit you on your patio this summer now that we know what's back there.
Thank you all.
Yes,
You all are welcome.
Oh, thank you for Monica. Thank you all for being with us this evening. It's still light outside, folks.
Yes.
So, we're moving forward to, better weather and a new day. Thank you all. See you again next month, second Sunday.
All right. Thank you all. Stay safe.
Beautiful.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. I enjoy it.
Great job. Great job.
Thank you.
Bye.